Far away from Earth, beyond the reach of human eyes and satellites, there was a beautiful planet called Zethar. The world shone with shades of blue and silver, floating quietly under a gentle star. The beings who lived there, the Zetharians, were tall and graceful, with shimmering skin that reflected light like liquid crystal. They were a wise and peaceful race who had mastered technology and energy in ways humanity could not imagine. Their society was ruled by a group of ancient leaders known as the Elders, who carried thousands of years of knowledge and memories. To the young, they were the voice of caution and experience. To the old, they were the protectors of Zethar's peace. For many generations, the Zetharians had avoided contact with other species. They believed that true harmony existed in balance, not in conquest or curiosity. But as centuries passed, the younger generation grew restless. They wanted to explore the galaxy, to see what other forms of life existed beyond their glowing skies. They looked at the old transmissions collected from deep space and found something fascinating: signals from a planet called Earth. Those signals showed humans speaking, laughing, fighting, and dreaming. To the young Zetharians, humanity seemed alive in a way they had never seen before. The Elders, however, were not pleased. They gathered in their great hall where soft blue light floated around them like mist and warned the young scientists not to get involved. They told them that the species known as humans were unpredictable. The ancient records described how humans had destroyed parts of their own world through wars and greed. The Elders had seen how they treated their planet and each other. They warned that curiosity toward humanity would only bring danger. One of the oldest Elders, named Veyron, spoke with a heavy voice. The humans burn what they love. They desire what they do not understand. If we approach them, they will not see us as friends. They will see us as resources. But the young Zetharians did not agree. Among them was Lyrian, a brilliant scientist full of hope, and Kale, a quiet dreamer who believed that even flawed beings could change. Lyrian would often stand near the observatory dome, watching the faint signals from Earth flicker across her screen. She saw humans playing music, painting pictures, and building things that amazed her. She couldn't understand how such a creative race could also be considered dangerous. To her, the Elders were simply afraid of change. In secret meetings beneath the glowing trees of the Crystal Garden, Lyrian and her friends discussed their plan. "We can't let fear stop us," she said passionately. "If we reach out to the humans first, maybe they'll see we come in peace. Maybe we can teach them what we've learned, and they can teach us what it means to feel." Kale nodded. He too was curious. He had seen the human faces in the transmissions, smiling, crying, and showing emotions the Zetharians rarely expressed so openly. He thought maybe humanity's chaos came from their hearts, and perhaps that was not a bad thing. Their conversations soon spread among the younger generations. Some agreed with the Elders' caution, but most were drawn to the idea of contact. They wanted to believe that the galaxy could be united, that understanding could erase fear. The Elders, seeing the growing restlessness, called another meeting. The council hall was filled with shimmering figures standing in silence as Veyron spoke again. "You are blinded by fascination," he warned. "You see their art, but not their destruction. You see their beauty, but not their hunger. They will take what we give and ask for more. They will come for our energy, our knowledge, and our world. But words alone could not stop the fire of curiosity." When the meeting ended, Lyrian and Kale stood at the edge of the glowing sea, watching the twin moons rise. The water glowed with soft blue light, reflecting the stars above. "I don't believe they are monsters," Lyrian whispered. "Maybe all they need is a chance." Kale looked thoughtful. "And if the Elders are right?" he asked. Lyrian smiled faintly. "Then at least we'll know the truth. Fear keeps us in shadows. I'd rather face the light." Days turned into weeks as the young scientist worked in secret. They built a small communication probe, sleek and hidden, powered by crystal energy. It was capable of crossing galaxies without being detected. Lyrian named it Echo, because it would carry their voice into the unknown and wait for an answer. While they worked, they imagined what the humans might be like up close. Lyrian dreamed of meeting a human scientist who would be as curious about Zethar as she was about Earth. Kale imagined sharing their knowledge of energy and light, helping humanity heal its damaged planet. To them, this mission was not rebellion, it was hope. When the day came to launch the probe, they gathered in silence near the observatory dome. The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds across the dark sky. The air was still, filled with quiet excitement and fear. Kyle placed his hand on the activation crystal. "Once this leaves our system," he said softly, "there's no turning back." Lyrian nodded, her eyes bright. "Let it go," she said. "Let them know we exist." The probe lifted silently, its light fading into the darkness. It carried with it messages encoded in sound and color, greetings, images of Zethar, and symbols of peace. None of them spoke for a while after it vanished. A strange mix of joy and guilt filled their hearts. They had disobeyed the elders, broken one of the oldest laws of their civilization, but they believed it was for something greater. Meanwhile, far away in the council hall, the elders felt a disturbance in the planet's energy flow. Varen closed his eyes and saw a faint vision, something small moving across the stars, leaving a trail of light. He sighed heavily. "They have done it," he whispered. "They have opened the door." But even then, the elders did not yet know how deep the consequences would be. To them, the humans were still far away, a distant danger. To Lyrian and Kyle, they were a dream of connection. They watched the sky every night, waiting for a response, unaware that their decision would change not only their world, but the future of two civilizations. And as the light from Earth's distant sun shimmered faintly in the blackness of space, the words of Elder Varen echoed softly in the wind of Zethar's twilight. Curiosity is the seed of both wisdom and ruin. But to the young Zetharians, it was too late to turn back. They had chosen hope over fear. They had ignored the warnings, believing that kindness would always be met with kindness. In that belief, they sent their message of peace into the dark ocean of stars, never imagining that what would come back would not be peace but the beginning of their greatest sorrow. The probe named Echo drifted silently through the dark emptiness of space, carrying the hope of an entire generation of Zetharians. It moved faster than light, following coordinates calculated by Lyrian herself. The data it carried was full of messages, sounds, and images meant to show peace. It told of Zethar's world, its shining oceans, its twin moons, and the beauty of their energy crystals that glowed like stars beneath the surface. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and then, after long waiting, the first signal came back. Lyrian was the first to hear it. Late at night, while others slept, she sat inside the quiet observatory dome, eyes fixed on the glowing screen. At first, she thought it was interference, just another space signal bouncing off distant dust. But then she heard it, a pattern, a rhythm, and then a voice. It was a human voice full of emotion, deep and unfamiliar. The sound made her heart race. She immediately called Kale. He arrived quickly, and together they decoded the signal. The message was simple but powerful. "We hear you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The words were short, but they carried 1,000 meanings. The humans had heard them. The message from Zethar had reached Earth. Kyle smiled faintly. "They answered," he whispered. Lyrian's eyes filled with tears of joy. All the risks, all the secret work had finally led to this moment. The next day, they gathered their small team of young scientists. The group sat in a circle around a holographic image of Earth glowing above their table. The planet looked strange yet beautiful, covered in blue oceans, white clouds, and patches of green land. Lyrian spoke softly, her voice shaking with excitement. "This is it," she said. "The beginning of something new. We will open a bridge between two worlds." They began to exchange messages regularly with the humans. At first it was small, simple greetings, shared images, and questions about each other's worlds. The humans were amazed by Zethar's technology and peaceful nature. They sent pictures of their own world, forests, deserts, and cities that shined with lights at night. The Zetharians admired humanity's art, music, and emotions. Every message made them feel closer, as if the distance between stars was shrinking with every word. But they knew they had to hide what they were doing. The elders had forbidden any contact, and if they discovered the truth, the punishment would be severe. Still, Lyrian and her team continued secretly, believing that what they were doing was right. They thought that when the elders saw the humans' kindness and curiosity, they would change their minds. As the communication deepened, both sides started sharing knowledge. The humans asked many questions about Zetharian energy systems, how they harnessed light from stars, and how they lived without pollution. The young scientists, proud of their technology, shared small bits of information, just enough to show how advanced their world was. The humans responded with data about their history, their science, and their dreams of exploring space together. Every night, Lyrian watched the blue light flicker across her console as new human messages arrived. Some came from scientists, some from diplomats, and some from ordinary people who wanted to talk to the mysterious beings from the stars. Many messages were full of excitement and hope. "We want peace," one human wrote. "We want to learn from you." Those words touched her deeply. It made her believe they were truly doing something great. Kyle, however, started feeling uneasy. As the humans sent more and more technical questions, he noticed something different in their tone. They wanted to know specific details about Zetharian crystal energy, its power output, and how it could be used. He told Lyrian, "They're too focused on technology. Maybe we should slow down." But Lyrian shook her head. "They're just curious," she said with a smile. "Humans always ask questions. That's how they learn." Weeks passed, and the relationship between Earth and Zethar grew stronger. The young Zetharians even built a more powerful transmitter to speed up communication. It allowed them to exchange images almost instantly. Humans sent videos of their scientists waving, smiling, and thanking their alien friends. Some played music. Others showed their families and homes. For the Zetharians, it was beautiful and strange. Their society was calm and controlled, but humans were full of energy and emotion. Lyrian began to admire them deeply. One night, as she watched an Earth sunrise through the transmission, she whispered to Kale, "They live with fire in their hearts. That's what makes them different." Maybe that's why the elders fear them. They're unpredictable. Kyle looked at her thoughtfully. "Or maybe they fear what fire can do if it spreads too far," he said quietly. Meanwhile, rumors began spreading among the Zetharian Council. Some elders had noticed strange energy fluctuations near the observatory dome. They suspected someone was breaking the ancient law of non-contact. The council called for an inspection, but before they could act, the humans made a bold move. They wanted to send a direct transmission, not just data, but a visual link. Lyrian was thrilled. "They want to see us," she said, smiling brightly. "This is historic. We will be the first to speak face-to-face with another intelligent species." Kyle hesitated, his chest tight with worry. "What if the elders find out?" he asked. Lyrian looked at him and said, "Then we will show them what peace looks like." The connection was made. The humans appeared as moving holograms, smiling faces dressed in white lab coats surrounded by glowing equipment. The Zetharians stood silently, watching in awe. The lead human scientist, an older man with kind eyes, spoke first. "To our friends from Zethar," he said, his voice shaking with emotion, "it is an honor to finally meet you." The moment was magical. The Zetharians greeted him with their glowing hand gesture of peace. Lyrian felt tears in her eyes as she replied, "We come in friendship." The humans smiled widely. For hours they exchanged words, laughter, and stories. Both sides spoke of hope, unity, and learning from each other. But beneath the surface, not everyone shared those pure intentions. On Earth, governments and military organizations were secretly monitoring every message. They saw Zethar's technology as a potential treasure. Reports were being written, plans being made, and leaders were already thinking about what it would mean if humans could control Zetharian energy. To them, it was not just about friendship, it was about power. Lyrian and her team had no idea. To them, everything still felt like a dream come true. Every new message brought excitement. The humans began asking for more technical help. How to stabilize energy cores, how to enhance propulsion systems, how to create materials stronger than steel. The Zetharians hesitated at first, but Lyrian believed it would help humanity evolve. "If they grow," she said, "they will become more peaceful. Knowledge changes hearts." Kale wasn't sure anymore. "Or it feeds their hunger," he muttered. One day, Elder Veyron appeared unexpectedly at the observatory dome. His arrival was silent but heavy with authority. The young scientist froze. He looked at the glowing Earth on the main screen, his eyes full of sadness. "So it is true," he whispered. You have awakened the fire. Lyrian tried to speak, her voice trembling. Elder, please listen. They are not what you think. The humans are kind. They want to learn to grow. But Varen raised his hand. You see what they show you, child. You do not see what they hide. He turned off the main console and stared into the stars. You have broken the oldest law of our kind. You have opened a door that cannot be closed. That night the council called an emergency meeting. The elders demanded the immediate termination of all contact with Earth. They feared humanity's hunger for power, believing it would bring ruin. But by then it was already too late. The humans had received more knowledge than anyone realized. The bridge was built and the connection could no longer be undone. As the young Zetharians watched the communication lines fade, their hearts filled with both pride and fear. They had touched another world, changed another species' path, but they didn't yet know the cost. Lyrian stood under the stars, whispering softly to herself. We only wanted peace. Above her, far across the galaxy, Earth's satellites glowed with hidden energy. Somewhere on that distant planet, human scientists smiled as they decoded Zetharian secrets, unaware, or perhaps uncaring, that their curiosity would soon lead to something far darker than either world could imagine. Weeks turned into months after the elders discovered what Lyrian and her team had done. The council ordered an immediate end to all communications with Earth, but the damage had already been done. The humans had received large amounts of Zetharian data, information about crystal energy, star core manipulation, and advanced biomaterials that could reshape entire worlds. The young scientists had not realized how valuable or dangerous this knowledge could be in human hands. To them, it was harmless sharing. To the humans, it was an opportunity unlike any other in history. On Earth, governments and powerful organizations were fighting secretly for control over the alien data. Scientists worked day and night in hidden laboratories, decoding the Zetharian transmissions. Some claimed it could be used to end hunger, to create clean energy, to bring peace. But behind closed doors, others spoke of power, of weapons stronger than anything ever built. The technology of Zethar was limitless, and whoever mastered it would rule not only Earth but perhaps the stars themselves. In one such secret lab, human leaders gathered around holographic screens showing equations and designs copied from the Zetharian messages. If this energy can be replicated, one of them said, we could power entire cities or vaporize them. Another scientist warned, we should contact the Zetharians again, learn more from them before we experiment. But the generals were impatient. No, one of them said coldly. We can't risk them cutting us off. We'll find them ourselves. And so, in the shadows of Earth's orbit, humanity began building ships and scanning deep space for the source of the alien transmissions. The messages from Zethar had been traced partially, and though the exact coordinates were hidden, the direction was known. For the first time, humans had a real path to another intelligent world. Back on Zethar, the mood had changed completely. The once bright atmosphere of excitement had turned into fear and guilt. The young scientists were summoned before the council for judgment. Lyrian stood trembling as the elders looked down upon her. Elder Varen's voice was firm but full of sadness. You were warned, he said. You opened your hearts and your world to those who have not yet learned peace. Now they know where to look. Do you understand what that means? Lyrian tried to speak, her voice shaking. Elder, they are not all the same. There are good humans, kind ones. They want to learn, to share. But before she could finish, Varen interrupted. Perhaps. But it takes only a few to destroy what many have built. That is their way. You do not yet see it, but you will. After the hearing, the young scientists were banned from the observatory dome. The council shut down all external communication systems. But Lyrian couldn't let go of her hope. Every night she returned secretly with Kale by her side, just to check if the humans had sent another message. For a long time, the console remained silent. Then one night it came alive. A human message blinked across the screen, but this one was different. It was heavily encrypted and marked urgent. Lyrian opened it with trembling hands. The message read, "We are coming. We wish to meet in person." There is much to discuss, her heart pounded. They were coming to Zethar. But Kale's face turned pale. No, he said. They shouldn't know how to reach us. How did they find our location? Lyrian stared at the words, confusion filling her mind. Maybe they tracked the signal. Maybe they just want peace talks, she said weakly. But Kale shook his head. Humans don't send fleets for peace. Within days, the Zetharian defense satellites detected movement at the edge of their system, unidentified objects entering through hyperspace. The council panicked. The elders gathered once more, realizing the humans had found them. Veyron stood before the central crystal, his old eyes glowing with worry. "It has begun," he whispered. "They are coming for what they were never meant to have." As the human ships drew closer, they sent messages to Zethar claiming peaceful intentions. Their words were polite, filled with promises of cooperation and friendship, but their actions told another story. Scanners showed that the ships carried weapons and extraction devices. The elders ordered all defense systems to activate, but they knew they could not fight such an unexpected threat. The humans had taken Zetharian technology and turned it into something deadly in only a few months. When the first human ship entered Zethar's orbit, the young Zetharians stood in silence watching from the observatory dome. The ship was enormous, glowing with bright blue lines, the same color as Zetharian crystal energy. Lyrian's stomach twisted. That's our design," she whispered. Kale's voice trembled with anger. "They've used our knowledge against us." The humans opened communication channels again, but this time their message was short and commanding. "We come on behalf of humanity. We request access to your energy cores for mutual benefit." Elder Veyron responded, his tone calm but firm. "Zetharian energy is not for trade. You were warned not to seek us." The human commander's voice hardened. "Then we will take what we need by other means." That single sentence shattered the last pieces of hope left in Lyrian's heart. She realized now what the elders had feared all along. The humans' hunger for power was unstoppable. They were not coming to learn. They were coming to conquer. Soon the peaceful skies of Zethar were filled with chaos. Human drones entered the planet's atmosphere, scanning and extracting energy from the crystal fields. Zetharian defense ships tried to stop them, but they were outmatched. The humans' weapons used the very same energy systems that the Zetharians had once proudly shared. Kale watched helplessly as cities began to darken, their power cores drained. "They're stealing our life," he said through tears. Lyrian ran to the council hall, begging the elders to let her try one last time to communicate. "Please," she cried, "if I can speak to them directly, maybe they'll stop. Maybe there are still people among them who believe in peace." Elder Veyron looked at her with deep sorrow. "You still hope for light in the hearts that have already chosen darkness. But go, child. Try if you must. Words may not save us, but perhaps they will save you." Lyrian sent a desperate message to the human fleet, pleading with them to stop the attack. She told them they were destroying innocent lives, that their actions would bring only sorrow. But the only response she received was silence. Then, moments later, the human ships began transmitting a new signal, one that disrupted Zethar's communication networks completely. The humans had cut them off. All across the planet, lights flickered and died as the extraction machines drained the crystal energy. The once glowing cities of Zethar dimmed into shadows. The people watched in disbelief as the sky filled with streaks of fire and smoke. The sound of the great energy towers collapsing echoed across the horizon. It was as if the heart of their world was being ripped apart. Kale found Lyrian standing in the observatory dome, her face pale, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought they wanted peace," she whispered. Kale placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "You believed in their goodness," he said softly. "That is not your sin. It is theirs." The elders gathered one last time in the great hall. Elder Veyron's voice was weak but steady. "Our time has ended," he said. "The humans have taken what they desired. Let history remember that we warned them. Let it remember that we tried peace before war." Outside, the once clear skies of Zethar burned with red light as the human ships departed, leaving destruction behind. They had taken what they came for, enough crystal energy to power their weapons and ships for centuries. They did not look back. They did not apologize. When the dust finally settled, Lyrian walked through the silent ruins of her city. The air was still heavy with loss. She saw children crying, families searching for light in the dark. She fell to her knees, her hands trembling as she looked up at the empty sky. "We wanted to help them," she whispered. "We wanted to make them better." Kale stood beside her, his eyes hollow. "And now they will become worse," he said quietly, "because now they know they can take whatever they want." Lyrian closed her eyes. remembering the first words she had heard from Earth, the voice that had once filled her with wonder. "We hear you." Now those same words haunted her. The humans had heard them indeed, but not with hearts seeking friendship, with minds craving power. And so the great betrayal was complete. Humanity, once seen as a world of potential and creativity, had revealed its true face. The young Zetharians, who had only wanted understanding, now watched as their home dimmed into silence. Above the darkened planet, the human fleet disappeared into the stars, leaving behind a world that would never trust again. The Zetharian world, once alive with glowing crystal cities and shimmering skies, now lay under a shadow. The human fleet had arrived in force, and their ships hovered over the planet like silent predators. The sky, once painted with the soft blues and silvers of Zethar's twin moons, now burned with the cold light of human scanners, searchlights, and energy beams. The young Zetharians watched from the safety of hidden observation posts, hearts pounding with fear and disbelief. The dream they had carried for months, the dream of peace and friendship, had turned into a nightmare of invasion. Lyrian and Kale were among those closest to the action. They had stayed behind in the observatory dome, unable to leave their post because they were the only ones who knew the network of tunnels, energy lines, and hidden passages beneath the city. The elders had tried to mobilize defenses, but even the combined strength of Zethar's protective systems was struggling against the humans. Their weapons were precise, powered by the stolen crystal energy, and guided by calculations the humans had learned from the very messages Lyrian and her team had sent. Every strike was a reminder of how knowledge given in trust could be turned into something terrifying. The humans began sending messages again, but this time the tone was different. Gone were the polite greetings and friendly curiosity. The transmissions were firm, commanding, and demanding. "We request full access to your energy cores," one message read. "Failure to comply will result in neutralization of resistance." Lyrian stared at the message in horror. Neutralization. The word rang through her mind like a bell tolling the death of their hopes. Kyle put his hand on her shoulder, his face pale. "They are not asking anymore," he whispered. "They are taking what they want, and they will stop at nothing." The first wave of human drones descended upon the planet. These were not simple machines. They were designed to extract and weaponize Zetharian energy. As they moved across the crystal plains, the energy fields began to destabilize. The glowing towers flickered and dimmed as the drones siphoned the power. Cities that had sparkled like constellations were reduced to dark, trembling skeletons. Panic spread among the Zetharian population, who had never known real violence. The children cried, the elders prayed, and the soldiers scrambled to contain the disaster. But it was already unfolding faster than anyone could respond. Lyrian and Kale tried to find a way to communicate directly with the humans, to plead with them, to appeal to the part of their hearts that might still believe in cooperation. Lyrian sent one desperate message, words flowing faster than her hands could type. "You do not understand the harm you are causing. Our world is alive just like yours. If you continue, there will be nothing left." There was no response. She sent another, even more urgent, trying to reach the humans through their own technology. Still silence. It became clear that the humans were no longer interested in dialogue. They were organized, systematic, and ruthless. Entire energy fields were drained in hours, leaving the ground below scorched and lifeless. Kale observed through the dome's viewing panels, horrified as familiar landmarks were destroyed. The great crystal library, a repository of centuries of knowledge, had been emptied. The rivers of light that had flowed through the city were gone. "They are erasing us," Kale whispered. Lyrian's voice trembled. "They are erasing what we loved." The elders convened one last time in the central hall, their faces etched with sorrow and anger. Elder Veyron addressed the young scientists. "You saw the humans through the lens of hope. We saw them through the lens of experience. They are not your friends. They never were. They do not understand balance or respect or life beyond their desire." Lyrian and Kale bowed their heads, guilt heavy on their hearts. "We tried," Lyrian said softly. "We only wanted to give them a chance." But trying had brought disaster. The humans were now moving strategically across the planet. Extraction machines were targeting the last remaining energy reserves. Zetharian defense systems were failing because the humans had learned their weaknesses from the very data that had been shared in trust. What had been intended as a peaceful bridge of communication had become a blueprint for conquest. Families fled into the mountains and underground caverns, seeking shelter from the drones and energy weapons. Lyrian and Kale moved through the tunnels beneath the city, guiding as many people as they could to safety. They passed mothers clutching frightened children, elders holding relics of their history, and young soldiers who could do little against the advanced human technology. Every face told the same story: disbelief, sorrow, and fear. Despite the chaos, Lyrian refused to give in completely to despair. She tried again to contact the human fleet, sending a live feed of the destruction, showing the panic and heartbreak caused by their actions. Kale watched as the humans ignored the images, focusing instead on energy extraction calculations and fleet maneuvers. It was no longer about learning or cooperation. It was about dominance. In the midst of the chaos, the young scientists saw the courage of their people. Soldiers worked tirelessly to protect civilians, often sacrificing themselves to slow the human machines. Families helped each other escape through the tunnels, guiding children and elders to safety. Lyrian felt a flicker of pride even as her heart broke. "We may lose our world," she whispered to Kale, "but we will not lose ourselves." Kale nodded, his jaw tight. "And maybe that is all that matters now." The humans continued their operation with cold efficiency. They captured key Zetharian scientists and engineers, interrogating them for technical knowledge. Many were forced to reveal secrets under duress, their knowledge twisted into tools for the invaders' own purposes. Lyrian watched helplessly as friends and mentors were taken away. Each captured person was a reminder of how her dream of friendship had become a nightmare. The skies above Zethar, once filled with the calm beauty of stars and moons, now roared with energy weapons and defensive pulses. The glow of human scanners illuminated the destruction below. Even the twin moons reflected a pale, eerie light on the city ruins. The once pristine landscape of Zethar, its rivers of crystal energy and glowing forests, was now a battlefield. Elder Veyron, standing on the balcony of the central hall, looked out at the chaos with a heavy heart. "This is the consequence of hope misplaced," he said quietly. "This is what happens when wisdom is ignored." Lyrian and Kale listened silently, the weight of responsibility pressing down on them. They had believed in the goodness of humanity, and that belief had brought their world to the edge of destruction. In the final hours of the invasion, the human fleet achieved what it had come for. The most critical energy cores were extracted, leaving Zethar crippled. Cities that had once glimmered like stars were now dark, silent, and empty. The few remaining Zetharians could only watch, mourning the beauty and peace they had taken for granted. The young scientists knew that their world would never be the same again. As the human ships finally departed, leaving behind a wounded planet, Lyrian and Kale stood on a hill overlooking the ruined city. The air was heavy with the scent of scorched crystal and smoke. Children cried in the distance, elders wept silently, and soldiers counted the cost of lives lost. Lyrian felt tears streaming down her face. "We wanted to give them a chance," she said. Kyle nodded, his voice barely audible. "And they gave us a lesson we will never forget." In the quiet that followed, the young Zetharians began to rebuild in secret, salvaging what they could. Their home was scarred, their knowledge partially lost, but their spirit endured. Lyrian and Kale vowed to remember everything, to ensure that future generations would understand the price of misplaced trust. And as the twin moons rose over the darkened plains of Zethar, the words of Elder Veyron echoed in their minds. "Hope can light the heart, but wisdom protects the world." Though the humans had gone, their shadow lingered over Zethar. Every flicker of energy, every silent crystal carried the memory of the invasion. The young scientists realized that their actions had set events into motion that could not be undone. Humanity had revealed its hunger, its desire for power, and the cost of ignoring the warnings of those who had seen it before. Lyrian and Kale, standing among the ruins, understood that their journey had changed forever. They had dreamed of connection, of understanding, of friendship across the stars, but the reality had been far harsher. The humans had answered the call of curiosity with conquest, and the Zetharians were left to mourn the dream that had once seemed so bright. And so, Zethar entered a new age, not of peace, not of hope, but of survival, reflection, and the slow rebuilding of a world that had been tested by the very beings it had tried to welcome. The young scientists knew that they had seen the true face of humanity, and that lesson would shape the rest of their lives. The bridge they had built had collapsed, leaving only echoes of trust, sorrow, and warning for the generations to come. After the humans had left, Zethar was a shadow of its former self. The cities no longer glowed with the soft, comforting light of the crystal towers. Rivers of energy that once flowed freely across the planet were now depleted, leaving vast plains of dark, lifeless crystal. The twin moons still rose each night, casting a pale light over the ruins, but even their familiar glow seemed dimmer, muted by the scars left on the world below. The people of Zethar walked through these ruins in stunned silence, carrying the weight of what had happened. Fear, sorrow, and guilt filled every heart. Lyrian and Kale moved through the shattered city together, trying to find survivors, record what remained, and help the population as much as they could. The streets, once bustling with life, were now empty. Smoke rose from the places where the humans had taken what they wanted. Families who had survived the first attacks huddled in the tunnels, emerging only to collect what little they could salvage. Lyrian felt a tight knot of guilt in her chest. She had once believed in the humans, believed that hope and kindness could build bridges even between vastly different worlds. Now she realized that belief had nearly destroyed everything she loved. The elders moved quietly among the survivors, offering guidance and protection where they could. Elder Varen walked slowly, his glowing eyes heavy with sorrow. "This is the consequence of misplaced trust," he said quietly to Lyrian and Kale, who were helping a group of children find shelter. "We warned you, yet you followed hope instead of wisdom. Still, there is work to do." The young scientists bowed their heads, shame and pain weighing on them. They had hoped to change history for the better, only to witness their world being stripped of its power and beauty. Despite the devastation, the Zetharians began to rebuild. It was slow and painful work. They salvaged broken crystal towers, repaired damaged energy conduits, and dug new tunnels for those who had lost their homes. Lyrian and Kyle led teams of volunteers, teaching the survivors how to restore small energy generators to provide light and warmth. Children helped as best they could, their small hands carefully placing fragments of crystal where they would still shine. Every evening, the sky was filled with faint glows, reminders that Zethar was not yet completely dead. But it was not just the physical rebuilding that weighed on their hearts. The young scientists knew that the invasion had changed their people in ways they could not yet measure. Trust had been broken. The Zetharians had always believed in peace, in cooperation, in the idea that sharing knowledge could bring growth. That belief had been tested and betrayed. Families no longer spoke freely of hope for contact with other worlds. The name human became a word whispered in fear and sorrow. Every new generation would grow up learning the lesson that curiosity without caution could bring ruin. Lyrian could not stop thinking about the humans, the faces she had once believed in, the voices she had once trusted. She remembered the first words that had filled her heart with joy. "We hear you." Now, that phrase haunted her. They had heard yes, but they had not listened. They had come with hunger, with ambition, and with a willingness to destroy what they could not immediately possess. Every destroyed building, every drained crystal, every frightened face reminded her of that harsh truth. Kale often sat with Lyrian, at the edge of the crystal plains, looking at the dimmed rivers of energy and the ruined towers. "We thought we were helping them," he said one evening, voice soft. "We thought that sharing knowledge could change them, but maybe some things cannot be changed." Lyrian leaned on his shoulder, her eyes reflecting the faint glow of the surviving crystals. "We wanted to believe in the good," she replied. "That was our mistake. But we must also believe in our own strength to recover." The elders worked tirelessly to document everything that had happened. They created records of the invasion, carefully noting the tactics humans had used, the weaknesses in Zethar's defenses, and the knowledge that had been lost. They hoped that future generations would learn from this tragedy, understanding that wisdom must guide hope, and that experience cannot be ignored. Elder Varen often spoke to Lyrian and Kale privately, saying, "You were brave to hope, but bravery alone does not protect a world. Remember this always." Knowledge given in trust can be turned into destruction if it falls into the wrong hands. Slowly, the people of Zethar began to adapt to the new reality. New energy systems were developed, designed to be hidden and protected so that no external force could exploit them again. Cities were rebuilt with stronger defenses, underground networks were expanded, and the elders taught the young how to manage resources more cautiously. Lyrian and Kale worked alongside these efforts, using their knowledge of the human invasion to strengthen every aspect of the planet's security. It was a bitter task, but necessary to prevent future disaster. Even as the rebuilding progressed, the emotional scars remained. Survivors spoke of the humans with a mixture of fear, hatred, and disbelief. The trust that had once defined Zethar's approach to other civilizations was shattered. The younger generation, who had once dreamed of reaching the stars and sharing their culture, now listened with careful ears to the stories of destruction, wary of repeating the mistakes of the past. Lyrian and Kale found themselves teaching, not only technology but also caution, reminding everyone that hope must be balanced with awareness. The two scientists often reflected on their own actions, wondering if they had done more harm than good. They had believed in the possibility of peace, in the idea that humans could grow wiser and kinder if given the chance. But the invasion had shown them the limits of trust. They had learned that intelligence alone did not guarantee morality, and that even curiosity and creativity could be twisted into tools of devastation. It was a lesson that would stay with them forever, shaping every choice they made from that day forward. Years passed, and Zethar began to regain some of its former glory. The surviving crystal towers were restored, rivers of energy flowed once more, and children played in the streets. But the memory of the humans' arrival lingered like a shadow over every corner of the planet. Festivals and celebrations were quieter, more reflective, as people remembered the lives lost and the trust betrayed. Stories of the invasion were passed down to the next generation, emphasizing both the beauty of hope and the danger of ignoring wisdom. Lyrian and Kale continued their work, mentoring young Zetharians and guiding them through the delicate balance of curiosity and caution. They taught that exploration could bring wonders, but only when paired with understanding and respect for the unknown. Their experiences became lessons for future generations, ensuring that the tragedy they had witnessed would not be repeated. They spoke openly about the humans, about their initial fascination, and about the pain that followed. Their honesty inspired resilience and awareness in their people. One evening, Lyrian and Kale walked together to the highest peak overlooking the capital city. The twin moons cast their gentle light over the restored towers, creating a scene of quiet beauty. Lyrian sighed, looking out at the faint glow of the city. "We lost so much," she said softly. "But we survived. We learned." Kyle nodded. "Yes, and maybe that is our true victory, not in what we saved, but in what we remember." They spoke of hope, of rebuilding, and of the importance of vigilance. Lyrian reflected on the dream that had led them to trust the humans, a dream that had almost cost their world everything. But she also realized that without that dream, they might never have grown as a civilization. The invasion had tested them, in every way, forcing them to confront loss, betrayal, and the fragility of trust. And yet, Zethar had endured. In time, the stories of the young scientists and the invasion became part of Zethar's history. Schools taught about the event, not only as a warning, but also as a tale of courage and resilience. Lyrian and Kale were remembered as leaders who had faced both hope and disaster with hearts full of intention. Even when their good intentions had been exploited, their story inspired others to dream carefully, to explore wisely, and to always balance curiosity with caution. Though the humans had left their mark on Zethar, their presence had also created a stronger, more aware civilization. The planet was more cautious, more united, and more determined to protect its people and its knowledge. Lyrian and Kale often reflected on the lessons of that time, understanding that some tragedies could never be undone, but that wisdom and resilience could shape the future. As the years continued, Zethar flourished once more, not as it had been, but in a new form, one tempered by loss, guided by wisdom, and inspired by the courage of those who had survived. The young scientists knew that their world would carry the memory of the humans forever, a reminder of both the dangers of misplaced trust and the enduring strength of a people determined to survive. And in that understanding, there was hope. A quiet, cautious hope that one day Zethar's light would shine without fear once again. Even centuries later, hidden records from Lyrian and Kale were discovered, filled with detailed accounts of the invasion, personal reflections, and messages of hope. Future generations read their words, learning the balance between curiosity and caution, and remembering the haunting lesson that had begun with the simple phrase, "The elders warned them about humanity, but they didn't listen." Through the ruins, through the scars, and through the memories of that fateful time, Zethar endured. Its people rebuilt, adapted, and thrived, carrying with them the lessons of a world forever changed. Lyrian and Kale, once filled with hope for friendship, had become symbols of wisdom, caution, and resilience, reminders that even in the darkest times, the spirit of a civilization could survive, and that hope, tempered by experience, could one day guide them back into the stars.